17 months in the union as a pipefitter apprentice is just crazy to say, that it's been 17 months. And of course, I gotta say that I have learned a lot in this trade. And of course, the good thing about this is that you're like literally learning a life skill that you're gonna have for the rest of your life. And let me start off by saying, if some of you guys are new, or you come across this video, I'm basically just documenting my journey in the union as a pipefitter apprentice throughout my 5-year apprenticeship. And of course, I will bring you guys monthly updates on things that I've learned, on like experiences that I had, advice, and things like that. And I will do this, of course, once a month for 5 years, just giving you guys this journey. And who knows, even after the 5 years, I will continue making videos, giving out advice, tips, and tricks of this trade. So how I set up these videos is I talk about my experience in the field, and then I talk about my experience at school. So let's start with what I've been doing out in the field. And I gotta say that for the month of October, I was pulling a lot of line sets throughout this building. And line sets are basically our refrigeration lines going into some units. So there are these boxes that are set up in each side of the building. So there's a box on the north side, a box on the east side, and a box on the west side. And these boxes have many line sets connected to it. So it just basically depends how many rooms are in those sections. So if there's 50 rooms, there's gonna be 50 total line sets. If there's 40 rooms on this side, there's gonna be like 40 line sets. So for many weeks in the month of October, we literally had to pull, like 50 to like 60, even up to like 80 feet of line sets to these boxes. You of course have to look at the blueprints and see that you're not gonna run into anything, and to know exactly where you have to 90 here or go up in height. I will say that the good thing about pulling these line sets is that you are basically above everyone. You're basically above the duct workers, the plumbers, the electrician, and things like that. But the tricky thing about pulling this type of copper is that it's so thin, so you gotta be really careful when you are pulling it, through these walls. When you're creating these 90s, it can easily get kinked. And of course, that is something that we do not want. The thing about these line sets is that sometimes, of course, these line sets come in pairs, but these pairs are in 50 feet. So sometimes, of course, you have to pair them with another set. When we are pulling these line sets, to the boxes that it needs to get to, we of course leave these things called brazing spots. So basically, later on another day, a journeyman will come around brazing these specific spots on the line set. So we have to be very careful on where we put this specific, brazing point for the journeyman, because we don't want him to braze, in an uncomfortable spot like near a beam or in a tight spot. We want to leave the braze point in a way where there's enough space for him to braze and be comfortable doing it. And it's just things like that to think about, for your journeyman to be, so he can, when he goes to braze, it's much more comfortable. Another thing we also been doing out in the field, on this job site, is getting a lot of deliveries, for units that are gonna go in each room. So we basically, as apprentices, have to go unload this truck and move these specific fan coil units where they need to go. Depending on the size of the room, it will also determine the size of the unit as well. So that is basically what I did in the month of October out there in the field. And now let's get into what I did in school. And like I had mentioned in the last video, of course, I had math class and I had hydronics. And of course, learning about the 45 offsets. And of course, using the right formula for that specific 45. And I was also taking hydronics. Like I had mentioned, that was a class I really enjoyed taking. So for the ending of October, I actually ended up taking math final for the hydronics, class. We ended up, drawing hydronics, like a boiler, and like writing types of functions this boiler has. Some things like, expansion tank or like a 3-way valve. And that's pretty much what I've been doing at school. And the classes that I am taking now is called crane signals. And I'm also taking ASME code, which is meant more for like the pipe fitters, code. And of course, we will get into that next month's video. And to give you guys a quick rundown on what I did in the month of October, of course, I was pulling a lot of line sets through the building, in different types of sections, like west, north, east, connecting this line sets to the units, and leaving brace points for the journeyman that's gonna come and braze them. And of course, doing a lot of moving, like moving a lot of the units to where they need to be in these specific rooms. And of course, I finished, math class. I took a math final, and I finished with hydronics as well. If you made it this far into the video, I want to say thank you guys so much for watching, for commenting all the time, liking this, and I try to respond to you guys with the best of my knowledge. With that being said, leave a comment below asking any questions, leave a like. But for right now, guys, have a blessed day.